Welcome to the Consciously Connected podcast.
We're so excited to have you on this episode where we're going to be diving into something we feel like is so important to have deeply connected relationships. And that is your level of communication. And when you go to have a hard conversation, a conflicting conversation, why it turns into more disconnect than connection, and why you don't feel heard when that's all you deeply desire, and why you feel triggered in conversations when you really wish you could just be regulated and move through the conversation in a powerful way.
Yeah, I think this is probably the downfall of every good relationship or potentially good relationship is it's like the disconnect in communication. And it's not that they don't know how to say things. They don't it's the space between what's coming out of their mouth and what they're thinking about that messes it up, I think.
Yeah, and we struggle with this deeply for a
My
long time.
goodness. Yes.
Yeah. And even became like more powerful in our communication and as we got more conscious, but there was still these layers that would run that would come out. And even now, standing here today, we have to lead ourselves in this. We have to
Yeah.
be so consciously embodied in these moments. And so we're going to dive into this episode, kind of what's going on, what you may experience, and, you know, probably give you a little insight into maybe why that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's super important. Number one, and what we live by, like you can't change anything until you understand what you're doing. You can't fix it. You can't, there's no creation of a different way until you understand or see yourself doing the thing that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so we're going to
It's like,
spend a lot of this, I think this podcast talking about what's not working. And hopefully you see yourself in it.
yeah, I mean, we said like sometimes we would have conversations that would literally turn into like World War III in here. And it's like, okay, let's dial this back. Like, let's figure out what's actually going on. So, the situation where either you're on one side and you're bringing conversation to your partner and you really want to be seen and heard in it, or you really want to discuss solution, or you really want to connect through a conversation about something either you're noticing or something that you want changed or something that you desire to have different. And you're met in that conversation with a trigger or with like a defense reaction or with a blow up, and you're like, what the hell, like I can't even bring this conversation forward. Or you may be on the other side of things where it's like you have a conversation brought to you that feels very triggering, that feels like it's in a tone that you don't like, or in an attacking tone or a judgment or criticism tone, and it immediately triggers you into not wanting to have any conversation whatsoever, and basically you're like, get the fuck away from me.
Yes. And I think those triggers and what we don't realize is those triggers have nothing to do with each other. These are long past events. We're just being reminded of them in the moment. And that remembrance allows us to act out in such a way to keep us in alignment with our former behavior pattern. And so, hey, this is how I did it before. This is what created safety for me before or gave me control. So I'm going to operate this way and get this bear away from me. The
Yep.
problem is, like in my case, I got a little 5'3" bear that follows me around the house all the time. There's no escaping that. So I need to understand why I feel scared of it.
And she's a blonde bear. So,
Yes. Albino bear.
and it's so true. And so when we really think about this, it's like you're not actually having a conversation with your partner in these moments, oftentimes. And either one of you or both of you are operating from a space of the inner wound, the inner child, the part of you that wants to fight, that wants to judge and criticize, the part of you that moves in a certain way. And you can even say, I'm not bringing it that way, or I wasn't, I didn't have that intention, or oh, I didn't have that tone, or oh, I didn't create this situation. And you could be right, but there oftentimes is an underlying energy that's running, and we talk about this deeply all the time. Is like, it's not necessarily what you say, it's how you say it. It's not necessarily what you bring, it's how you bring it. It's not necessarily the energy that you think you're bringing something in, is the energy that you actually are. And so we
Because I
always say
mean,
this too. Go ahead.
yeah,
Yep.
I said like 7% of every communication structure is words. Seven. Seven. Let me say that. Seven. That's not a lot. But I would say 97% of people believe it's all words. And if it's just 7%, that means there's 93% of what I'm about to say has nothing to do with what I'm saying. It has everything to do with how I hold myself, the stories I'm telling myself, the feelings I'm feeling, everything that's going on. And most people don't even look at that. They just try to figure out the words. What
Yeah.
is going on in here that's keeping the words disconnected from the person I'm trying to talk to?
Yeah, and we always say too, like when emotions are high, intelligence is low. And so when you're in these emotions, the words that you're saying are not intelligent. They're not coming out in a way that is very conscious. And we can, know that we're conscious people and know that we have like the best intentions, but oftentimes our partner is not experiencing us in that way, or we think we're being a certain way and we're not, or you're on the other side and maybe it is coming to you in the right way, but the filters that you're hearing it through are triggering the things inside of you. And that creates a reaction that then is like not ideal, whether either you don't feel ideal in it because you operate a certain way and then afterwards you feel guilt and shame for either how you acted, what you said, the triggered response, the anger, the ways that you showed up. And sometimes like we've had to like really eat some words or really like own like some places where we said some pretty gnarly nasty things. And in those moments, and it's like, wait a minute, do I really feel this way about the situation, about this person? Like, why did I act that way? Why did I show up that way? And we can question that all day. But when your emotions are high, when those triggers activate your nervous system, it's like everything comes in to flood you like you're running from a bear. But it's like you're literally anchoring back into that state of knowing, like, my nervous system's activated. So anything that comes out of my mouth from this point forward is kind of going to be either probably not 100% conscious and definitely not 100% real. And so we have to see ourselves in that, obviously, first and
Yes.
foremost, but then know it's how it's running. And if you want to be someone who walks away from conversations and doesn't feel guilt and shame, or walks away from conversations and feels more connective than you do disconnective, then these are pieces that you have to recognize that are running because they can control the situation in that moment.
Absolutely. The one thing I've realized doing this work is that the smallest version of me, and that's what I call it, like my inner child, little Jimmy, he's way more passionate about things than Big Jimmy is. And he's way more protective about Big Jimmy than Big Jimmy is protective of little Jimmy. And he's way more trying to control the narrative more than Big Jimmy's trying to control the narrative. And so it's as I see the little boy pop out, and he pops out still. Like there are days where he comes out, and I'm like, "All right, what are we doing here?" And I start to see like he tends to be more fearful of scenarios than he is confident in scenarios. And the fear is what drives his ship. And so it's the fear of not being loved, the fear of not being accepted, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of being perceived in the wrong direction, whatever it may be. We just have all these, little Jimmy has all these fears. And when little Jimmy comes out, he's going to come out swinging fists and raising voices. Little Jimmy raises the temperature pretty high, and he's a good temperature raiser in
Mhm.
order to get the temperature off his back. The problem is I'm in a relationship with the most conscious human I've ever met. And so she just looks at me and is like, "Are we going to do this today? Really? Is this what we're doing today? I think I'm going to need you to take a break and figure this out. And then we can have a normal conversation." I'm sitting there going, my little Jimmy wants to fight. Like he wants to knuckle it up a little bit. And she's like, "Yeah, I'm just not doing that. It's not good for me and my nervous system today. So I need you to figure this out." As this has happened, like I've grown to a space where it's now like, okay, here's little Jimmy. Let me talk to him, see what's going on before I start even trying to have this conversation. Because I know as soon as I go in with little Jimmy, this train is running off the track left and right.
Yeah. 100%. And it's so interesting, obviously, being someone who always saw myself as like super conscious and could see things outside of myself and could see you in your wounds, see you in your triggers, see you in your and how you were operating. And if you're listening to this and you're a woman and you're intuitive and you're conscious and you can see your partner in these spaces, even in the moment that they're doing it, and you're trying to call forward, like, hey, like, this isn't, the way this conversation was meant to be going, you can also see yourself in being that match for that. And
Yeah.
I had to really take ownership of that and seeing myself and being a match for it in a little bit different way and almost in a little bit sneakier way. Because obviously, if you're responding to these conversations and your outburst or you're reactive or you're yelling or you're condemning or you're defensive or you get a tone or you show up in a way that is very reactive in nature, it's like you can look at that and be like, okay, you're wrong. Like, this is not cool. You're being a fucktard. Like, this is not amazing and you're pissing me off, And then at the same time, it's like the little sneaky things that are running was the parts of myself that were a match to this. And that was the part of, you know, filtering my voice or dimming myself the moment that someone else took up more space in the room. Or it would be a situation where I don't trust the masculine and their anger issues. So I would abandon my emotions or my feelings in that moment and then go serve that to try and calm the situation down or try and, diffuse the trigger or make the other person feel better or, get back into a space of wanting to be connective and chosen and loved and seen in those moments. So I would abandon ultimately the standards of who I was and what I was bringing to the situation to serve that energy. And you can look at like the match in the mirror that I was to it because of my own stuff. But those are the little sneaky unconscious things that are running that are a match to it. So it's very easy as a conscious person that can see something outside of yourself to be like, they're the problem. They're the problem. They got the issues. They're the one being crazy. They're the one doing this. And although those things are real and true, there's also a part of ourselves that we have to take ownership for and that we're involved in the situation equally. It's just it looks a different way. And that's it gets kind of hard to see sometimes. The reaction is easy to see, the defensiveness is easy to see. It's not easy to see our judgmental tone. It's not easy to look at ourselves and say, like an hour before I brought this conversation, what was my stories? What was my thoughts? What was I thinking? Because that energy is what's coming into the conversation, whether you're attempting to or trying to or not.
Yeah, and I think right there, like that piece right there, that messes up more communications than anything. And it's not like you intentionally are trying to hurt or you're intentionally trying to feel like, but there's something in here that's in between you and the person you're trying to talk to. And in
That's right.
that, it's that story or that belief or that feeling that you have that that other person's not being or not serving or not showing up for, that becomes the thing that you lead with, even though your words may sound beautiful. They may look pretty. Jocelyn is the best communicator on the planet, but there was a time period where those stories would get in between the words and I couldn't even hear the words. All I could hear was, "You're not good enough.
Yep.
I don't like you. You'll never be my man." And all I could hear was these words, but she wasn't ever saying it, but it was that was the energy that was being approached with it. And now, like on the other end, like she's super aware of what she brings to the scenario. And so like if she's even off a scant amount, she even says like, "Hey, I want to talk about this, but if I talk about this right now, it ain't gonna be pretty. So we'll talk about it, but it ain't gonna be right now." And she's just so conscious of it right now. And it's like I can respect the shit out of that because I've been on the other end. It's not fun. When she just lets that shit go. When she drops that bomb on your ass, woo woo, boy, you better get to running.
Well, in that moment, we had to grow to that space because before, it's operating from a place of like, okay, I'm angry, and I have to really like regulate and take ownership and like own those emotions and move them out of my body, whether it's somatically, whether it's consciously. But it's like moving those emotions out. So then I'm bringing facts to the conversation and my truth and my regulation and my consciousness versus the anger. And that's one of the hardest things to do because in the moment when you feel those emotions, you want the other person to feel that emotion essentially. You want them to take ownership for that emotion because you want to make it feel better and you want them to see where they're making you angry or where they're hurting you or where they're, doing something where it's like, this is your fault. I need you to take ownership. I need you to see it. I need you to understand it so you can stop it. And in reality, that's not actually the energy that we need to stop it or to change it or to come together in it. It's like it has to be from a different place. And so it's like one of those spaces of I can see okay, I'm angry and I'm like livid at him. And there's medicine and power in that. And
Yeah.
there's truth in you might be doing something fucked up that I need to express. But it's like, I need to do that from a place that can actually be heard and actually can be seen. And it's still from the energy of I love you. And it's still from the energy of I love our relationship. It's still from the
Hmm.
energy of I respect you versus you're a piece of shit and you will never be anything that I need you to be. And you're, the dog shit on my shoe kind of vibes.
Yeah, and this is goes kind of to what we really believe is like, and when we get into a relationship, a lot of times people blame their partner for the lack of something, the lack of safety, the lack of this, the lack of that. We believe like in this relationship, we're co-creating this together. Like we co-create safety, we co-create communication, we co-create standards, we co-create this scenario together. And if there's something I'm doing that's not in alignment with the co-creation, then I expect her to bring it to me. And she expects me to bring it to her. And she doesn't blame me. She's just like, look, hey, we've created this idea together and you're over here. So we need to move it back over here. Or you're wanting this, but you're operating this way. We need to move the operation back over here. And so it's instead of us coming to this communication, or just really in the relationship in general, where a lot of people just blame the other person for not creating the thing that they need to feel good. It's like, hey, we are equal contributors to this safety. We're equal contributors to this container. And we have to see ourselves in it as much as we see the other person. If not, the connection's always going to be broken.
Yeah, and I think it's important to highlight too, like this is not just in your intimate partnership
No.
relationships. Like these communication patterns and structures and the ways to respond happen in every single relationship that you have, whether it be a relationship with your clients, a relationship with your boss, a relationship with your friends, your family, your kids. Like these communication patterns and the triggers and the way that we respond emotionally happens across the board and they can come in from any place, any person. And the way that we respond to the conversations, the way that we operate or even bring conversations, either has a level of, emotional complacent. I don't even say complacency. That's not the right word, but emotional neutrality versus like I'm highly heightened one way or the other, and I'm
Yes.
highly attached one way or the other, or I'm highly triggered because of my own stuff one way or the other. And so it's like being able to get yourself into that place, whether it's you bringing a conversation or you're responding to a conversation, or should I say reacting to a conversation, it's like being able to be an embodied leader of those moments is going to transform how you relate to people, the level that people are actually able to see and hear you, the level that you're able to actually have connection walking away from a conversation
Hmm.
versus like this disconnected, disempowered, not feeling good about yourself, negative emotion space that over time ruins relationships completely.
Yeah. I think you said a big word there, attachment. And I think that often gets overlooked
Yeah.
is like, I mean, we talk about nervous system, we can talk about inner child wounds and everything like that, but we attach to people feeling we need to feel inside. And when we do that, those people become the controller of the feeling. And so if that person says something to me that doesn't match the feeling I want to feel, I automatically think I'm a piece of shit and this person's scary and all that because we've attached the feeling in here to something out there, and that something out there can never fulfill the feeling in here. And when we do that in our relationships, and we all do it, shit, I've done it. Like I'm attachment king number one,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I've had to really work on not. It's not like detachment, but not being attached to anyone for something I need in here. And when I started to see like how I was moving in order to get her to move to feel good, in order I was saying things or not saying things in order to get her to move to feel good, it started to realize like I wasn't really in a relationship with her. I was in a relationship with myself. And I wasn't actually connecting with her. I was trying to connect to myself. And so I went to work on that part of myself. So then I could actually allow her to see me. And then she could actually show up for that. Right. Before then, I was trying to get her to show up for something she couldn't do nothing about. And she didn't even know she was showing up for. And so she was always frustrated. She's like, "What do you want from me?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "I need a million things. I got a list."
It-
She goes, "Go do that for you. Go do that for yourself, because I ain't doing it."
Yeah. And it's interesting because that's kind of your thing. And you always go to kind of, that's like your initial reaction is to go to that. And mine is to go to like put distance, close down,
Yes.
protect myself, go within. I got
Yeah.
this. Like, I don't need this. It's like more of an avoidant space
Hmm.
of putting in space. And so obviously, those two mirror each other. And a lot of what we experience in these conversations is a mirror. It is the law of the
Yes.
mirror where your partner or your friend or your boss or whatever is mirroring something to you and mirroring something that is within you. And we talk about this on this podcast, in our programs, everywhere, all the time, is
Yeah.
the power of the reflection that you receive in the external reality and how that is actually igniting something in your internal state of being, specifically if you're triggered, specifically if you have like deep reactionary negative emotions. Like, there's medicine, there's a cheat code to those spaces and times into your true self, into like what's trying to come up for to get you to see, so that you can move past that and connect more with who you truly are versus these wounds, these egos, these
Yes.
disempowered parts of ourself that then become disempowered spaces in our relationship, disconnected spaces in our relationship. And the law of the mirror is, when these are happening and you do have a reaction that way, or you do bring something forth in that way, it's a shadow that's running. And these little shadows, or these little unconscious, spaces that we're trying to move, or that we are moving either because it's something we learned, or that it's something we accumulated, or it's evidences that we had, well, then now we're moving unconsciously in this way that's not necessarily aligned with who we truly are. Or it's like these little shadows that are running, they're coming from our own wounds and our own spaces and places within ourselves, that
Yeah.
relationships have the power to mirror strongly to us. And you're never going to be perfect in it, but it's like, how are you leading yourself through it? How are you seeing it in the moment? That's so
And I
powerful.
and I think men often get tripped up with the idea that they we want to be in a relationship with somebody that agrees with us all the time, like,
Mhm.
because we don't agree with ourselves, so we're trying to get somebody to agree with us.
Well, don't
But
you think
what
an agreement too is like that means that they respect me if they agree with me? Is
Yeah,
that kind of
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
I totally can see that 1,000%. I think another thing though is what men don't recognize is like that agreement is like turning a blind eye to the things that are running the train off the track. And what I know to be truth in all of our studies, and the things that we've kind of understood about relational dynamics, is that your feminine partner is truth in the relationship. Like, men want to live in the truth. Your feminine partner helps you stand in the truth because they point out where, hey, you're a little to the right there. Hey, you're a little to the left there. I'm not saying you're bad. I'm just saying you say you want to stand here, or you're standing over here. Get back over here. You say you want to stand there, you're standing over here. Get back over here. And it's not like any detriment to the man. It's just you said something. She holds you to the truth of that. And in that, it means more about you that you get mad at her for calling you to the word that you stand on. But what we realize, what if you get really conscious and you get really grateful, you start to
Yeah.
realize like that's where I'm at. It's like, even when I get pissed, because I still get pissed and I still get frustrated, the first thing I always say is thank you afterwards. And she's like, why thank you now? I'm like, because I know I could see the medicine in this, and I could see where I was out of alignment. And I could see what you were trying to do. And I need that because I can only see myself to the limit I see myself. Some other people can see different parts of me. And I need those different parts on display if I'm going to be willing to be fully integrated as a man. And that means I got to allow my wife to be my truth sayer. I got to allow my wife to hold me accountable to me. I got to allow my wife to say, that doesn't work. That's not in alignment. And that means that I'm okay being critiqued. I'm not okay being criticized. I'm okay being critiqued because in that critique, I can see what's right, what's wrong, and what I can do better, and I can move forward in that. If I'm being criticized, that means already in her mind, I'm lower than her. I'm already in her mind not lovable. In her mind, I'm not good enough. That's never going to promote a man up or promote a woman up. I got to approach that with love. Critique is, hey, you said you want this. This is where you're not showing up for that. That's a critique. It's not, hey, you're a piece of shit because you're not showing up for that. That's a criticism. You already diminished, you diminish the level of the person. And so I think that's oftentimes a lot of men and women get that misunderstood. They think every word is a criticism. It might be a critique. You've trained yourself to believe anything that's not agreeable with you is against you. It's not. It's holding you to your truth.
Yeah, and that's the role ultimately of an awakened feminine woman, or a woman
Yes.
who's tapped into her intuition or understands and can see things beyond. It's like the feminine energy is the most power source of truth. And when we like really anchor into that and we see that, and we often say this because y'all, if you've listened to this and you know, we have these spaces that we, the conscious kings and the conscious queens, and we have that obviously as so many different metaphors that it stands for, and being an actual queen and leading yourself in queen energy, or being a king and leading yourself in king energy. But it's also like the power of, if you think about the royalty of a king and a queen, oftentimes the king consults the queen, and she's the one in the power in the background who can bring truth and say, hey, I got you, but can you see this? Like, do you see this going
Mhm.
on? She brings the power of truth, and the king goes to the queen as a safe space to get that critique, to get that further intuitive understanding, and sees her as a queen that he trusts and can receive that critique in making him a more powerful king. And ultimately, when you can lead with that energy and you can see your relationship as that sacred space to do so, then these conversations become less triggering and more activating to you into your higher power. And I know you often say, guys, she's given you a cheat code ultimately
Yes.
to her heart. Like when she's bringing these things to you, it's because she cares. She's bringing these things to you, it's because she wants your leadership and coming together to fix something she's experiencing that's either a problem or something she sees outside of your relationship that needs to be handled, so that she keeps the home and the house safe. And ultimately, that's one of our superpowers. And
Yes.
so it can literally lead to deeper connection. One, because at the feminine, she just wants to be seen, heard, and understood. So if she even feels like you're listening to her in these moments rather than getting defensive, then even just listening to her, she feels more connection, even if you don't agree with her. In fact,
Yeah.
she would rather you, so if you don't agree with her, then call that forward from grounded energy. Call that forward and saying, no, like I hear you and I see what you're saying, but here's, this truth, or here's my
Yeah.
reality, or whatever. Like, we welcome those types of and levels of conversation. Like, we
Yeah.
want you to lead yourself. We want you to lead our relationship. We want you to lead, the energy of our home. And so it's almost like I'm bringing something to you. I want to be seen and heard in it. I want you to look at it from that critique lens and see yourself, or see the situation, see what
Yeah.
I'm bringing to you, and then saying, like, okay, I can see that. I can see where you're coming from, or okay, I
Yeah.
can see that, but still lead yourself in your own power, not fall to, oh, if I do, like, happy wife, happy life, like whatever she says goes. If she brings something, like the moment you falter your energy to that, then that also re-triggers us, or we go into our masculine energy. And that's not going to be an empowering space for these conversations either.
Absolutely. I think it's so important too. Like on the other side, women, like when your man brings things to you, this is not an opportunity for you to fucking fly off the handle. Right. This is a story.
Yeah.
A story I get from, I would say, 95% of men is they receive a lot of criticism or critique. And as soon as a man brings anything, it's divorce, separation, or you are toxic. And when that's happening, men then will lonely island you to death. They
Yeah.
will go quiet. They want to feel like it's an equal standard because in a great relationship, we have to equally hold each other to the highest level. And if the woman's only doing the holding, who's holding the woman? And I think it's the job of both partners to equally hold each other to the highest level of ourselves. And that means we have to be willing to hear. We have to be willing to listen. We have to be willing to see ourselves instead of project outside of ourselves what we think.
Yeah, and it's a hard thing to do because you live through the lens of your own reality, and everyone does. And so it's like you're
Yes.
fighting two different levels of reality sometimes. And we always say there's like, there's someone who's right and another person who's right, and then there's the real right. Because at the end of the day, like you're right from your perspective, or you're right through the filter you're looking at this through, or you're right through your own experiences and evidence that you have that creates this reality true for you. And oftentimes we come to conversations only from that lens, and we will fight to the death for our reality because our ego cares more about being right than being open to understand the full situation, or being open to see a higher perspective or a point of view, or to be inquisitive to what our partner or what our friend or whoever we're talking to perspective is. And therefore we don't lend a lot of reality of having powerful conversations, because it's like I'm fighting my truth, you have your truth, we're both right. And ultimately, like there's a higher right, there's a higher perspective that's actually going on. And when we can get inquisitive, we can see someone else's perspective, when we can say, like, I can see why you feel that way, or I can see why you got that experience that way. And I need for you to see my truth as well. And we're open to seeing both perspectives and seeing the common ground or the common solution, or I can shift this for you, you shift this for me. It's a mutual compromise to be able to meet in the real truth, the real middle, if you want connection versus conflict, if you want connection versus disempowered states of being. Sometimes that's easier said than done when you go into these shadow selves and you go into these places where you're so triggered that you just need to be right. You need them to see how they did this. You need them to see how they hurt you. You need them to operate from this level of being so that you feel safe. And
Yeah.
all that is at the forefront, well above love and of the other person, well above
Yeah.
wanting to understand the other person. And so it takes
And
precedence. And both
yeah,
of you are doing that. And so it's just
and
like constantly fighting.
and the more you need somebody to be something, the more you need them. Like I need you to be this so I'm okay. The more control they have over the relationship. Like they have control over you, they have control over them, and they have control over the dynamic of the relationship. And the chances of them showing up for what you need probably gets limited because
Yeah.
you're not showing up for what you need either. And you're putting the need outside of you. I need you to be okay. I need you to be this way so I feel safe me being me here. And it's like, how do we then take all that need? I need the world to be this. I need me to be good in the world. And so, how do I create good in me so I can show up to the relationship not in need all the time, but willing to meet somebody else's need and have my needs met. Neediness and having needs are two different things. And I think we get that misconstrued a lot of times in relational dynamics is like men and women both are fucking needy as hell about things. But are they your true needs? The masculine's needs are being loved, trusted, respected, desired. The feminine's needs are to be seen, heard, felt, and understood. Outside of those things, a lot of neediness happens. But if those four things are met on both sides, a lot of connection happens. And that's the needs that have to be paid attention to, not the neediness of your fears or the neediness of your wounds and stories. It's the how do we connect? And we connect through meeting each other in service.
Yeah, and it's the same thing where it can go like when you're in these situations, it's like the energy of you're blaming somebody for your needs not getting met without taking
Yes.
radical responsibility that one, either you're not meeting your own needs and you're expecting someone else to do that, or you're blaming them for the situation without taking radical ownership for your role in it or your mirror in it. And so we can always, and I know you always say too, it's like the power follows the blame finger.
Alex Hormozy, baby. That was one of my favorite quotes ever. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's just like anytime I point the finger outwards, I automatically give the power to whoever I blame. Like, hey, you caused this. Well, then I have no control over how I feel then. I have no control how I show up. I'm only reacting to everybody around me. And so if I always hey, you're responsible for this. How you show up, how you take it, how you hear it, how you receive it, how you process it, and then how you communicate it. That's all on you. She can't make it work for you. She can't make it any different. I wish she could. I wish she could come inside of me because she is the best at it. But some days I just need to get better at it. And that's really what I have to do. You can wish all the time that your partner will show up and do it for you and make it right and make you feel the best in it, but you're not getting any better. She's just
Hmm.
making it easier. And I would
Yeah.
rather face the hard early and then make it easy over time.
Well, and it's just an innate space of like, are you, and like we will say, like when we hear when we hear this verbiage, your mind and your being is going to immediately be like, that's not me. I don't do that. But it's like we go and unconsciously into victimhood, into victim
Yes.
energy so quickly, specifically in these moments, because we become victims to the circumstance, become victims to the other person's actions and behaviors, and like poor pitiful me,
Yes.
or like this is happening to me, or this person is doing this. And we can sit here and say, oh, I'm not a victim in my life, I'm conscious, I'm not a victim in my life, I do this and I take ownership for this. But in these moments, it's so easy to slip back into this victimhood of being not a conscious creator of your life and not taking the radical ownership of your role in what's going on. And whether it be your role because you're either contributing to it, you're projecting it outside of you, or your role because you're a wound match for it. And not seeing how you're playing an energetic, space for this. And so when I really started embodying conscious queen energies, which we call it, and like my conscious
Yeah.
queen container, my conscious queen code that I teach women, and move them through, it's like when you really like anchor in and see these shadows and these identities running to where you're actually a match for this, and how in some ways energetically you're creating it, and you decide I'm no longer available to be this space in this space, and I'm no longer available to keep blaming and keep seeing him in this disempowered place, and I'm no longer available to actually run these patterns and run this. You actually want to see those shadows. You want to
Yes.
see how you're creating the situation. You want to see how you're a contributor. And I will say that is something that I have mastered. And that's not to like gloat myself, but it's like there's this space where it took a lot of practice and a lot of embodiment in what I teach and preach, a lot of embodiment in the ways that we had to grow and evolve, especially over the last 5 or 6 years, where I became so anchored in that and that embodied leadership, it transformed our relationship. Not that you weren't doing work in conjunction to that, but there's many layers that you didn't actually do work on that I transcended by becoming a different woman
Yeah.
and showing up in a different way. Whereas I didn't see it because I was so conscious and I was so like elevated in how I operated. But it's like there was still these little layers that were running that when I actually was able to see them and then shift them, it shifted the entire dynamic of our relationship.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
how you responded to me in these conversations.
Yeah, because I think what people too don't really understand in a relational dynamic is we want the other person to move, so we'll move. But it really is often the thing you need them to move on is a movement you need to make. Like you are the limiting factor in the movement forward of your relationship, but you're putting it outside of you because you think they should do it, so you feel comfortable in it. And once we start to realize, like, every time I step up the ladder, my partner probably steps up the ladder and sees us differently. And it's not because they're different, it's because I'm different in the approach. I'm different in the understanding. I'm different in how I see them. I'm different in how I talk about things. And even now, like when we have conversations, we even look at each other like, damn, like that's different. We have never talked about that. We'll even record some of our talks sometimes and we sit there and go, well, damn, like I could have done that 10 years ago. And it's really cool. But it's because we've both taken personal responsibility and accountability in who we're going to be here.
Yep.
And we've not said, I need you to be this, so I'll be this. We took that off the table. I want to be the best husband that I can be on the planet. That's my goal every day. I be the best husband, the best father, the best man. I show up for it every day. That's what I want to improve on. She wants to be the best wife, best mom, and best woman on the planet she can be. And in that, there is no words that are, I need you to be this, so I'll be the best man. It's always, I can see, okay, I got to step this up. I got to work on this piece. There's this little piece over here that keeps getting in the way. I need to look at that. And it's, you see all the roadblocks then because it's on you and not her to fix you. It's on you and not her to be better. And then when we start to operate from there, we stop looking outside of us and we start looking inside of us. And all that energy starts to move forward pretty fast because momentum happens when people start to feel the speed of success rise within them. Like when you start to see the things that are off and you start correcting them and things around you start to move with you, you're like, oh shit, I want to do more of that. I want to do more of that. I want to do more of that. But if you're approaching everything from wounds and stories and all that crap, you're like, I don't want to do more of that shit because I'm getting the thing I don't want. And they're like, I don't, I just, and that's why I had a video go viral a few weeks ago and there was, I don't know how many women said, I haven't talked to my husband in 10 years or more. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's because they are so afraid to improve themselves in their delivery or whatever it may be that they've come to the belief that it's better to just be quiet.
Yeah,
And
or
that's
it's a
their life.
self-abandonment tool.
Yeah.
Like they would much rather just people please and show up to be chosen and show up
Yep.
in the ways that they can show up without having that voice, without having that high standard or without activating or without emasculating. Like there's all these like tiptoeing energies to not get rejected, to not feel abandoned, to not rock the boat, to have the energy and connection. When in reality, there's such a disconnect because there's a self abandonment piece happening that they're not actually truly being seen, heard, and felt and understood. And so it's like serving the needs of the situation versus standing in the power of truth, of power, of standards, of emotional mastery, and calling their man forward, not from a place of your criticism, not from a place of judgment, not from a place of put down, but from a place of power in your own self. And I think that's the big difference between, maybe how I operated previously to who I became in our relationship. Was before it
Yeah.
was like this place of judgment and criticism, and you were the problem, and you were a piece of shit, and you were this, and you were that. And like, and there was this energy around that that doesn't serve the relationship either, because it's like, yes, okay, I'm calling for truth, and
Yeah.
on paper, yeah, this is truth, like this was truth.
100%.
But there's like this other side where it's like, yes, and there's always two sides to the coin. Although it's true, there's a place that of maybe why it's true, or a deeper layer of like how I'm contributing to make it true, or whatever it may be. And so when I became somebody who stood in conversation and power without self abandonment, to keep the peace, to not make you feel a certain way, to not have you unravel and not feel good enough, then that created all kinds of other issues or whatever it may be. It was more so a different energy of love, ownership, power, truth, emotional mastery. That when I became what I call the conscious queen embodiment energy in that space and getting your frequency on fleek is what I always say too. It's like everything around me shifted and changed, not because of anything specific that I was saying, but how I was operating and bringing forth truth, bringing forth that power in the conversation that shifted everything. And we have that power. And I think something else you said, it's like we can amplify this by choosing it daily, because it's
Yes.
like we can go so unconscious daily. We go unconscious daily. So like if you're listening to this, you'll listen to this and you'll feel lit up about it, or you'll feel truth in it, or you'll feel whatever in it. You may share it, you may own it for a couple of days. And it's like, then we go unconscious. It's like doing the embodiment work to actually shift your identity, to become someone different, to operate different, to alchemize these shadows, to stand in more power and truth and become the conscious queen, the conscious king in your life. Then you don't have to sit here and consciously think about it. It's a choice every day, but then it
Yes.
becomes, once it's a choice every day, it comes on repetition, it becomes who you are, and then it's just who you are every day. And that's ultimately the work that we do. And that's why we're so passionate about this work, is because It's not something we're out here like just studying and reading about and understanding and teaching and preaching because we feel excited about it. We literally have gone through the trenches of this shit over and over and over and over again to the point of no return. And now we see it so clearly. We've embodied it so differently, and we see the results on the back end of it in our own relationship, in our relationships with friends, in our relationships with our kids, with our clients. Like we see the transition that it's created. And so, therefore, it creates this new level of passion of wanting other people to truly see it and to
Yes.
truly shift it because the intimacy and the connection and the power that you feel on the back end of that is like undescribable. And that's why we're so lit up about it all the time and like talking about these things.
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of times people are like, what gives you the right? It's we live it. Like everything that we talk about, we have lived, or we currently live, or we practice on a daily basis because we see the outcome that we desire. And we know like every day when we move toward it and who we're being, and we're paying conscious attention to how we choose to show up every day and how we choose to live and how we choose to operate and function and think and believe, it has a dynamic effect on our relationship with ourselves, but really a dynamic relation effect on the relationships we have with everybody else. And that's so important. A lot of people think that whatever it is like it is what it is. I hear that all the time. It really isn't. It is what you choose. And if we keep choosing every day the thing that we desire to see, we're going to see it. We just have to keep choosing it. We have to keep showing up for it. We have to keep functioning in it. We have to keep learning ourselves in it. And the more we can do that, the more visible our life becomes that we desire to look at on a daily basis.
Yeah, and it's being conscious and being able to see it. Like you can't like what you can't see, you can't do anything with. Like what you don't
Exactly.
know until you know. And once you know, you can't unknow. And so it's like then it's just an embodied practice. And in that, it's like seeing those things. And that's why like we deeply love this work and we bring people into different spaces because once you can see it. And the first stage is seeing it and seeing
Yes.
yourself fully and seeing the shadows that are running unconsciously that are creating your current situations. Then it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then you have the tools and power and support and accountability to actually shift it, and then your whole life changes. And it's not even just relationships, like these patterns that we run and we don't see this, these patterns that you run in your relationships, they impact your purpose, they impact your money, they impact your health.
Everything. Everything.
And so it's like once you shift your identity of what's like literally being mirrored and portrayed to you in your relationships, when you shift those things out, you shift your frequency, which shifts your like what you're available for in your whole life. And so it's such transformational spaces and work. And I'm excited about, we're about to launch a program that is
Hmm.
directly related to this, just from a space of like awakening to yourself in these things. It's called Conflict to Conscious Connection. And if it's something that you feel like you are challenged with, when whether it be how you bring or what you're receiving, or you feeling like your conflicts aren't going the way you desire, or you're feeling disconnected on the back end of not being heard or seen, or feeling judged and criticized, or you're just kind of struggling with this space, this course is going to be absolutely shifting. Like we recorded it last week. It's so amazing. We brought forth so many different aspects, but we told so many stories of how we have actually shifted this and what it actually looks like. And then you have an expansive workbook to really see yourself in it, see and awaken to the different parts of it for yourself, and then actually embody and align with a different state of identity and a frequency. And that program is going to be absolutely next level. So if it's something you're interested in, check the call notes, Conflict to Conscious Connection, and it will radically change things for you. And if you're ready to go into even more transformational work and you want a coach who's bringing forth these things with you and accountability and walking beside you and moving through, whether it be as an individual or as a couple, we do have private coaching spots available. And I know we're also having these accountability containers in the Conscious Kings and the Conscious Queens code spaces that will also radically shift you. So If you're wanting to do work, if you're wanting to up level in these areas, don't hesitate to reach out, have a conversation, see what would be the best spot for you. But we highly recommend starting with this conflict to conscious connection course because it's going to radically shift things for just who you're being able to see yourself in it, and being able to shift so many dynamics in your relationship when it comes to communication in these areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really awesome that we give the masculine and feminine perspective. Like it's kind
Yeah.
of a cheat code. Guys, if you're listening, you get to hear from a woman's point of view, like what's happening inside of them. And then
Yeah.
women, if you're listening, you get to hear from a man's point of view, like what's happening inside of us. And then how we've done it together, and then the ways in which you can do it for yourself. So it's super exciting. I can't wait for you guys to check it out. When we put it together, we're like, holy shit, this is good.
Yeah, it's so good because
Yeah.
it's what we literally walked ourselves through multiple different tools, obviously, but also just from our own space and of understanding and seeing how energetically it shifted everything and how much more deeply connected, how much more intimate we have conversations now, and how much more conscious we are that we are the creators of our life, and everything that's transcended past that. It's hard to put into words, but we're super grateful for this mission on our heart. And so we create these spaces to share this work with the world because it's so deeply something that we've experienced. And we know that, our mess can be somebody else's massive breakthrough. So
Mhm.
thank y'all so much for listening to this one. Check the call notes, reach out if you need anything, follow us on the socials, and we'll see you on the next one.